We live in a time where masculinity is shamed and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Bellet. Welcome back, everyone, to the BraveCo podcast. I feel so honored to have this next guest on. We've been friends for quite a while. I've been on his show before, and the guy just eats, sleeps, breathes, lives emotional health. And Chris Cook, man, thank you so much for coming on here. For those people who've never watched your show before, you're a pastor, you're a coach, you're just a profound human being. And I really appreciate our friendship over the years.
Likewise.
And appreciate what you're doing in this space. You've currently just written a book that we're going to talk a lot about today. But before we go into that, man, thank you so much for coming on.
It's a great privilege.
Awesome, man. You just wrote a book called Healing What You Can't Erase. And for those of you that want to check it out, we'll talk a lot about this. And obviously, this resonates a ton with me, and it resonates a ton with me. And I think it resonates with humans just in general, because it's so relevant. I don't know one human being that doesn't have an area of their life that they wish could be erased, right? When we get down to it, I think through my past, and I was just talking about it again today. I was talking about, addiction at 10 years old to masturbation, and then, oral sex with guy friends of mine when I was really young, and pornography from 14 to 16 years old, and nervous breakdown and divorce. And, there's just so many things when you look at anyone's history. And the truth is like, my story is not special. It's my story, which makes it unique to me. But I've never met a man that doesn't have things that he wishes he could hide. He wishes he didn't do. He wishes he didn't have to talk about. And so what we're all really hoping to do at our age, when you start to become aware, right? When you start to become conscious, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm married. I've got kids. I'm working full time. There's so much stuff in my life that feels important. And yet the biggest things in our life are the things that we don't often talk about. Those things that we wish that we could go back and fix, because it's driving so much of our life. Right.
Yep.
And so a resource like this, being able to talk to men and people that are in this space who are healing those things in our past that we've just drug around forever. When I talk to guys, I talk about it being the weight in their backpack, right? It's the stuff that you just keep loading stuff in over and more and more and more. Yep. And we often don't stop to go, what the hell's going on? Like, why is my life so heavy? How do I offload this pain?
That's right.
And so, in this, I really do. I want to dive into some of your story, but really also equipping men. And I want to touch on shame quite a bit.
Awesome.
Today, because I think that's a big factor. But talk me through, I read your book a bit, so I know part of the story, but talk me through like what drove you to writing this book, but more importantly, like what was the story in your life that you felt like, man, I'm stuck like this. I can't, I'm taking steps and I'm in the mud. I'm in the quicksand. I'm freaking dying here.
Yeah, Jay, thank you. And first of all, I just want to honor you in front of your tribe to say, man, you are a man on the path. And it's what I love about you so much and celebrate about you. This is a shared passion of ours, transformation from the inside out, which means spirit, soul, and body. And I'm excited to be here. So
thanks.
The flyover of the context is that when I was a little boy in 1994, at the age of 37, my mom was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. Now, for all intents and purposes, it was a death sentence. And so in an effort to save her life, my parents found a medical doctor in New York City who had pancreatic cancer patients alive 25 years after diagnosis, which is pretty wild. Yeah. After 12 years on his protocol, following a season of really intense lower back pain and then an MRI of her spine, it was discovered that the cancer had awakened and was spreading all throughout her body. It was May 1st, 2006, to be specific. Jay, we were in an emergency state, to say the least. And so then from 2006 to 2011, with very few days of reprieve, she was in and out of the hospital on the regular. We almost lost her in surgery twice. It was a traumatic scene round the clock for years. I do want to preface by saying, my sister and I were raised in a very safe, stable home. Our parents are professional counselors, and so they did a great job amid this, but it isn't to take away from the fact that things were very scary for a long time. We had to grow up quickly. By 2012, the medical treatment options had run their course and mom was placed on hospice. Now, despite this, we weren't letting up our hope for a miracle, even as she declined into a comatose state. And then sadly, on November 21st, 2012, interestingly, I told you before we hit record, that's today, 12 years on.
That's wild.
It was the day before Thanksgiving then. She passed. And the 18-year battle had ended immediately, which left our family completely battle weary. And so 9 months after her death, in the height of my own grief and trauma, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which felt like I was kicked while I was down.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Complex post-traumatic stress, the immune system just collapsing, unmasked this autoimmune disease. And we can get into the specifics about it. I'll just say this on a side note, Jay, I had this subconscious narrative that said it was my job to make sure she didn't die. And I actually fully believe that was a false belief, a false identity that was living in the subconscious, driving my reality, so much so that because I believed someone had to pay, that led to the emotional, physical collapse in 2013. So by 2014, a year after my diagnosis, I knew something had to change, but little did I know at the time that what needed to change more than my circumstances was me. I had to change from the inside out. And so in a quick moment of prayer, I asked the Lord to do something and help and heal me. And he didn't respond with great. You know what? It's been a long, almost 2 decades of your life, and you're not even like full on an adult yet. Like, you're just early in your adult journey. He responded with a question, and I felt the Holy Spirit ask, "What do you want me to do for you?"
Wow.
Here's the question. It was rhetorical, of course. Was I willing to take the first step into transformation? Was I unwilling to allow nearly 2 decades of pain and loss to define the rest of my life? And so as we begin today, I think this is the critical question and really the critical point for all of us to understand. No one is denying pain and loss. At the time we're recording today, Thanksgiving is next week. We're on the edge of the holiday season, and it's during the holiday season that a lot of these issues are dialed up in the soul. And unlike the song that says it's the most wonderful time of the year, for a lot of people, it's just not true, me included. So here's the point. The day that we decide that the pain of regret is greater than the pain of making a change, I believe will be the day we begin the process of healing and transformation. And I say it is a process, because transformation, I say this on my show, transformation doesn't happen in one day, Jay. It happens daily. So that's the flyover. That's what leads us to this conversation today. It has been hard. I am on the path. I am learning. I am growing. I'm healing. I'm not over it. I'm walking through it.
Yeah. Well, what is always shocking, I think, to all of us is when you grow up, you don't imagine spending a large portion of your life working through pain.
Right.
transforming. You know, we just don't think in those terms. And hopefully people don't. I mean, your childhood's supposed to be a really innocent place of growth and learning. But it is true. Like you hit a certain age in your life where you start to awaken to the reality of life, is that people don't live forever. We don't last forever.
Right.
You know, your car tires are wearing out. Your roof has a shelf life on it. I mean, everything in life is breaking down. It just is. It's just how I look in the mirror. 5 years ago, I look different than I look today. And you can hate that, or you can embrace that this isn't our final resting place.
That's right.
There is no destination on this life in which we go, man, I worked for 50 years and now I get to just rest and not work anymore and not age anymore and not have to stretch anymore. And why I say all this is because the truth is that we were built to work through pain. We were built for it. Now, it's not fun. It's not easy. It's not simple.
No.
But we've been given the capacity and the capability to do it. The challenge is it's so foreign. It really is so foreign. And I'll say the other very hard part and blessing is that, like in your circumstance, your mom gets cancer. And it's stretched out for so long that we're often not taught how to care for ourselves in that type of suffering. Right,
Jay. Yeah, right.
And so that long suffering is very wearing to the soul and eventually to the body, right? Because you can't hardly separate them. But I do want to tell people, because I think that we get very overwhelmed by this idea that there's so much to work through and there's so much that I can't avoid. And there's so much that, and we could talk about why, but I think one of the things that's really helped me this last year was realizing that, no, when God built us, he also put inside of us the ability to work through hard things. It's not like we were built and then all these hard things happened. And so, now we don't have a way to deal with that. Like, God's really smart and creative. And so anyways, you know, when we're talking about pain and we're talking about processing, every human being is going to go through this process, not the same exact one, you know, but we're all going to go through a process, honestly, on a regular basis. If you've been married, you know what it's like to blend two people into one. And it's not like you pick which one and she's going to become me. Like, we're going to knit our lives together. There's going to be so much in a healthy conflict, right? And there's going to be loss and there's going to be gain. There's going to be joy and there's going to be sadness. And there's, I mean, just every single day, you know, is I have to have a toolkit that serves me every single day. And so anyways,
wow, Jay,
not to go on that huge rabbit trail, but I think when we're starting to talk about this stuff, I feel like our generation was so far behind.
Why?
Our parents' generation was so far behind in emotional health that it's like, oh my gosh, we have so much pain and no one knows what to do with it because no one talked about it.
Oh, okay.
And no one's, I mean, look at our school system. You learn crazy things, but you don't learn how to communicate. You don't even actually learn how to express your emotions, which there is no human connection, deep connection, without the expression of emotion. So I'm saying, like, these very basic, you don't learn how to set boundaries in school.
Oh, man.
You don't learn how to go like,
Jay,
hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I can, like, basic communication, right? We got doctors who are getting degrees and don't understand healthy boundaries, don't understand healthy communication. So I'm just saying it wasn't in the culture,
right?
Like processing pain, mourning, healthy communication. It wasn't in the process. So I feel like part of what's happened is our generation, not to talk this whole time. Sorry.
I love it, Jay. No, I love it. I love it.
But our parents in our generation, it's like we've come through this crazy storm of turmoil and pain, and that all of a sudden we're going like, oh my gosh, so many people are mentally ill. So many people are suicidal. So many people are depressed. There's so much anxiety and we don't know what to do with it because it wasn't in our everyday life. Our forefathers,
Jay,
were pioneers.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the friggin' tough people. Our forefathers took wagons from Independence, Missouri, and there was a grave every 50 yards. That's how many people died from here to Oregon. And there was no avoiding it. There was no avoiding someone dying. There was no avoiding, you're going to pull up stakes and go to this place. So you're going to sail across from Spain to this new country. I mean, how much of America is immigrants? Like all of us, our forefathers took these massive risks, worked through very hard things, but that was part of the process. That was a part of just humanity, not the last, 60 years. The way that we live our lives is very sheltered and isolated from pain. We have our culture has shut off this idea that suffering is a part of life. Suffering is a part of life. So anyways.
So the muscle's atrophied is what I hear you saying.
It's so atrophied.
The muscle of resilience and perseverance has atrophied, and like an atrophied muscle, we have no use for the limb, so to speak, anymore. And now we've got a generation that's atrophied, so to speak, emotionally, and thus we turn to self-protection, self-promotion as an unhealthy coping mechanism instead of walking through to grow. Yeah. That's sort of what I heard you say, eh?
Well, I mean, you said it better than I did, but it's true. That's 100% what's happened. And if you don't, well, let me say it like addiction starts in our lives when we can no longer bear being present. So addiction starts when you can no longer bear being present, right? So think about that.
Dang it.
Yeah. With 50% of our children growing up in homes without fathers today. I mean, I'm just taking one statistic. There's a bunch of statistics, but you just take that one. Okay. When did you start becoming present in your life? The average person, I mean, probably they don't realize like, wow, I'm alive, I'm living, there's consequences till you're 8 or 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
So addiction starts in our life when we can no longer bear being present. Okay. Well, for most people, they didn't even really, that happened in their life. Addiction happened in their life before they were even conscious. Because most people are born, the average child now is being born into a culture of chaos. It's induced pain. And you get wired in the culture that you're born in. Right? So you get born.
Without a doubt.
Think about it.
Well said. Well said.
Because you bond to whatever environment you're born to.
Yep.
So think about that. If your parents are if your mom's overburdened and your dad's working all the time and you get born, you're bonding to this chaotic world. So you learn self-protection, you learn repression, you learn self-medicating, you learn all these things, which isn't evil, it's survival.
Correct.
And so we have generations of survival. And generations of, it used to be that one parent could go to work and make enough money for the whole household. So mom could stay home or whatever, dad could stay home. But now that's just not the case. You almost have to have two people working. So again, you have these kids who, and by the way, in the agricultural age, kids were a blessing. You needed kids in order to raise a family, in order to help. So kids were born into, I'm a blessing. As soon as the industrial age kicked in, kids were a burden. And not that parents wanted to be kids' burden, but kids were a burden. You went from having 7 kids per household to, 2 kids to 1.4 kids right now, I believe is the standard, is what we're having, because kids are challenging. Parents have to work a lot. There's single parent homes. There's dad's not available. Okay. when we're talking about healing what you can't erase, that's the climate. That's the ecosystem. It's not just the one-off. Of course, you know, some people get cancer like your mom.
Well said.
My mother-in-law just died last year of cancer. But the relevancy of what you're writing here is we are living in a world induced with pain. People are being raised addicts to video games, to iPads, to movies, to food, to ideology, right? You need to change your gender in order to, you're born wrong, right? It is an addiction.
Yep.
And we don't know how to deal with it.
Well said.
So I love that you're doing this, because one of the things that you said in here, and I want to talk about it, is why transformation beats willpower. I think that's one of the bullet points that you have in your book. And I know that when people get into this journey, right, because people are starting to wake up and starting to come into this journey in the same way that they're waking up to whatever, vaccines, and waking up to food, and waking up to our food pyramids, a scheme, all that stuff, right? People are waking up. Our world is waking up right now.
No question.
And they're jumping in and they're going, oh my gosh. I mean, guys by the thousands are going, oh my gosh, my life is, I'm in pain. I didn't even know what to call it before. I had a guy on yesterday who said, like, man, I had anxiety. I didn't even know what to call it for years, 5 years of my life. I didn't even know what to call this thing I felt every day.
Right.
Our first mode, a man's first mode, is willpower.
Yep.
It just is. It's like, that's what got me in through baseball. It's what got me through, it's how our dads teach us, is like, you suck it up. You got to be a man. And that's not horrible, but talk about the difference between transformation and willpower.
Yeah. Listen, this is not to slight willpower at all. I just think it's a very limited commodity.
Yeah.
Henry Cloud says it really well this way. How can I be? So this is sort of a statement on not only willpower, but self-help.
Yep.
In the self-help playbook. How can I be the guy laying on the side of the road and the ambulance at the same time? In other words, if I'm broken, and what I mean by that, folks, join with us, like, broken is not an identity. It's a state of being where we need to move through and move forward to transform. Here's the point is, I have a limited capacity by which I can service my deficits, my liabilities. It's like a 5-gallon bucket from Home Depot and a 16-ounce bottle of water.
Yeah.
Those are different capacities. And Jay, you and I have different capacities. But what's true about both, and both of us, is that we don't have unlimited capacities. And so when it comes to, and in the book, I dive into the neuroscience of this. So because in the limbic brain, where we store emotions and trauma and deep-seated memories, we also learn that the subconscious is a million times more powerful than the conscious mind, and runs 95% of our day. And so when we are in a state of unhealed wounds, unhealed trauma, and the narrative is saying, it doesn't matter what you do, you are fundamentally and fatally flawed, there's going to come a point in which my willpower runs out.
Yeah.
No amount of willpower, desire, is going to get to the root to heal what I believe is the root, which is the broken spirit. This is where transformation comes into play. You asked me the question, okay, what's the difference? Transformation versus willpower. Well, transformation begins when I say, I can't. I can't do this. So I am surrendering, not in a posture of giving up, but I am surrendering to give into a process of confronting dysfunction, limited beliefs, unhealed wounds, traumatic wounds, cellular memories, et cetera, et cetera. And that process of confronting all of those liabilities will eventually lead me to a place of experiencing transformation. And as I said at the outset, this is a daily thing. This is not check a box and I'm done.
Yeah. If you would say surrender is the first step, what's the second step?
Once I say yes to, I need help, I have to pursue it. I really have to pursue it. I have to, in community, because I really believe healing happens in community. So in the place of community, with help, I have to begin to allow the Holy Spirit to shine a flashlight upon the woundedness of my soul and my broken spirit, to illuminate places. David prayed, search me, know me, Lord, try, weigh, to illuminate these areas of unhealed wounds in my heart, dysfunctional beliefs, because again, we can be living under a paradigm like I was for nearly 2 decades. This is just what reality is. This is true for me, but it's not actually truth. And when I can submit my true to the truth, this is where confession, telling the truth, leads to repentance, which is a change of mind, which results in transformation.
Yeah, I like that.
Confession, repentance, transformation.
I like that.
I look at it this way. Let's just paint a picture for folks. So let's just say our body is a boat, and our soul, the mind, will, emotions, intellect, desire, seat of emotions, etc., that's the sail. The sail sets the direction of the boat and guides it and moves the boat. But what gives life to the sail? Wind, breath. So the breath, the wind, the animation, the courage, the vigor, the vitality is the ruach, as the Hebrew word it would say. Yeah. And that gives life to the sail and propels it forward. So when the spirit is broken, this is why Proverbs says this, that the human spirit can endure sickness. But who can withstand a broken spirit? A strong spirit, rather, can endure sickness, but a broken spirit, who can bear up under that? It's the gas in the tank. It's the breath in the sail. It's the animation, the vigor. It's the courage. And it's more than depression, psychological depression. It is a level of despair where I'm defeated at the core, Jay.
Would you say that it's your belief system?
I think belief system comes out of the broken spirit.
Yeah.
From a mindset perspective. Yeah.
Amen. Right? Because I'm trying to help guys to wrap their mind around, because I think it really resonates. I do. I think it really resonates with men when you say, like, all of this is stemming out of a broken spirit. You're like, yes, that feels so true and so powerful. So I would say that when I think about this and having a broken spirit, I think of when hope is drained from a man.
That's it, Jay.
When he's in despair, right?
Correct.
When there's no more vision.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So no more will to live, that type of stuff. Like, and I think a lot of that comes from, well, it's the hope deferred makes the heart sick. And when you dive into that, right? It wasn't actually talking about when hope takes a long time. It's not like, oh, I've been hoping that something would happen for a long time. That verse, when you actually look into it, is when I stop hoping, when I give up hoping.
There's no reason to even try.
Yeah.
What's the freaking point?
Yeah. Have you heard of the story of the rat with hope? I'm sure that you have. You had to have. It's the experiment.
Tell me.
Okay. Yeah. This is so awesome. So this the scientist, he took these rats and he would put them in a bucket of circulating water. I can't believe you haven't heard this.
No, maybe I have, but no.
Yeah. And what would happen is these rats would swim as long as they could, and inevitably they would typically get to about the 15-minute mark. So some less, some 7 minutes, some 15, and they would drown and they would die. But what the scientist started to do is he would rescue the rat right before it drowned, and he would rest it and he would feed it, and then he'd put it back in the water. This is crazy. When he put a rat back into the water, guess how long a rat could swim for? 7 to 15 minutes first time. How long do you think a rat could swim for?
After being fed and cared for?
Yeah, after being saved.
Oh man, I feel like this is a trick question because I'm
thinking
thinking about it on both sides of the coin.
No, just think about it logically. Like 15 minutes, he gets saved.
Yeah. I mean, logically, I'd want to say 20, 25 minutes, but part of me thinks less because, well, I don't know.
I know. It's crazy. So
I don't know.
he puts these rats back in. They could swim up to 64 hours.
What?
Up to 64 hours. Yeah. Want to know why? You know what his scientific conclusion was?
Yeah.
The rats were energized by hope. Somehow, some way, if I keep swimming, if I don't give up, if I just keep going around, some magical thing will reach down and grab me and pull me out of this hell if I just keep going. What did the rats not have at first? They didn't have any hope, no perspective. They swim 5-10 minutes. They weren't drowning because they were tired. They were drowning because their spirit was broken.
Dang it. So does that mean that rats have prefrontal cortices and you know, like
I think that rats have instincts.
Yeah, Jay.
And we start to swim and you go like, well, I don't know how the hell I got out of this the first time, but I'm going to keep going until I know there's a way out, right? So rat's just going, I know there's a way out. I know. I think the rat went round and round and round and went, there's no way out of this. I'm done. That's what's happening the first time. The second time he's going, I'm swimming. I'm getting tired. Something pulled me out of it. How did I get? I don't know how I got out of this, but I kept swimming. I mean, that is human beings to a T.
I was the rat before being pulled out for the 18 years of my mom's story and the first 9 months of the grief journey. And then after diagnosis, because it was let's just connect this for folks, because it was Christmas of 2013. I had just been diagnosed with MS. The hope was gone, Jay.
Gone.
I didn't know if I wanted to live, and I never considered acting upon that thought, but that puts my narrative in line with the story of what you just shared. And I think you made a brilliant point.
Well, it's so true, right? I mean, when I went through my nervous breakdown in 2009, I lost use of my arms for a year. I couldn't lift this cup without using two hands. I couldn't hardly drive. Yeah. I couldn't make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for my kids. I was a single dad during that time, and my body shut down, completely shut down. And if it wouldn't have been for my dad, I remember one night I was a year into it and I literally thought I was dying. They were doing all the tests, all the brain scans, and you've been through it, you know? And I was so convinced that I was dying, that my body was shutting down. Like my body was following in line with what I was thinking was happening.
Oh yeah.
It just went worse to worse to worse to worse.
Yeah.
I remember one night I was on the phone. It was 11 o'clock at night and I was crying, talking to my dad. I couldn't even hold the phone to my ear. I was laying on the phone. And my dad said, son, what are you going to do? And I don't know, you know, and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know, and I just was having such a hard time telling him how much pain I was in. I just felt like it was so hard to describe it. I couldn't walk a mile. I just was completely broken down, completely. And he started telling me about these great men. You know, he started telling me about George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. And he was telling me about, gosh, what's his name? Anyways, he started telling me all these stories about these great men who, you know, overcame polio and overcame, you know, war and overcame sickness. And he said to me, you don't get to decide whether or not you die. You only get to decide whether or not you live. That's it.
Whoa,
how much time, are you going to live with the time that you've been given? That's the question that you have to answer, son. Like neither of us are doctors. The doctors don't know what's wrong with you. No amount of time is guaranteed. Your body's shutting down, but you have to decide whether or not you're going to live. And my book that I wrote, the Winning the War Within, I was 4 chapters in when my body stopped. And that's when my dad told me that, right? And
wow.
And I was telling him, like, I'm done. I can't write this book. And he said, you got paid. You already got paid for the contract. You need to finish that book. And I think that's what started the conversation. I was like, you don't understand. I can't even freaking type. Like, what do you want me to do? And he said, son, you don't get a chance. You don't get to decide whether or not you die. You just get a chance to decide whether or not you're going to live. You have to figure out how to write that book. But not only, but that was a 2-hour conversation. And I remember jumping into the shower the next morning, and it was like everything inside of me realized there's only two paths. I'm either going to go down this despair and give up, or I remember thinking, if this is the last thing I do, which sounds really dramatic, but not when you can't use your arms and your body's freaking out. If this is the last thing I do, I'm going to do it with excellence. I'm going to finish it. And I used a dictation, thing, and it was horrible. But I finished it. But to me, that is the difference. And you're right. It's there's no one straight path to, okay, I'm going to process through these memories, or okay, I'm going to work through my past, or the question is, are you going to live or die? Are you going to wake up and start down the path of hope again? Start down the path of changing the way you think, starting down the path of healing your spirit. I love it, Chris. It's right on. You're right.
Thank you. It's a big deal, Jay, and I think for me at least, it separates or puts a stake in the ground against a lot of the traditional mainstream self-help advice. Because all of that rests upon body, mind. And listen, I get it. And those are legitimate areas to find healing in, except for the fact that I believe that the deepest part of our beings is spirit, not soul. Spirit, we are spirit, soul, and body. And, imagine hooking up a garden hose on the house and turning the water on, but then stepping on the hose midway through. You're going to cut off the circulation. And that's what happens, I think, when the broken spirit, Job even said this in Job 17, verse 1. He said, my spirit is broken. And there's a Hebrew word for broken there, kabal, and it means to tie as if with a rope. And I think that's the picture for all of us, is the level of when the life source is cut off, we are atrophied. We talked about being atrophied at the outset today. This is a life that is atrophied, and this is not through willpower, but the day that we decide that the pain of regret is greater than the pain of change, because change will hurt. The day that we decide that regret hurts more than making a change is the day that we're going to say, okay, with everything I have, to your point, I'm going to grab my dictation machine. I'm going to take the first step in community, saying, help, Lord, here I am. You have to do the work in me. Goodness gracious, we've got to be fully honest with him. I think about the blind man in Mark 10. Before Bartimaeus received his healing, he had to throw off his outer garment. And how many of us, how many of us are wearing these proverbial outer garments of fear and shame and false identities and victimhood? The identity of victim is prevalent. It's celebrated in this postmodern, post-truth culture, and it has to stop. It's demonic.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think it's why shame is one of the biggest
Jay,
proponents of death for us. And I think it's why it was present in the garden, in the sense that if the thing with shame is, guilt says that you did something wrong. Shame says you are something wrong, right?
Bingo.
And so as soon as you dive into shame, it becomes an identity, which of course that identity, why hope if this is who you are? Why have any hope if this is just, if you were born wrong, if you are evil, if you're just a dirty human being, so that's why, to me, like shame, I was leading a men's group today. So I lead these master classes, and we're talking about shame today. And I was telling the guys, like, hey, the problem with shame is it becomes like a best friend. It tries to help.
You got it.
It says, if you work harder, perform better, tell a better story, look better, people will really love you and they'll really accept you. It's a bad mistress because you can never do enough, right? And we keep it around, we keep shame around because we believe that we need it. And I was telling these guys, like, this is the problem with having secret sin in your life.
Yep.
As long as you have secret sin in your life, you're literally sharing a bed with shame, because shame says, if people really knew that you did this, they wouldn't love you. That's the only reason why you keep that secret, right? Because if I expose this thing, like you're saying,
sir.
He had to throw off his garment. He actually had to expose
vulnerability.
This is who I am. And we have this misconception that I came into Christ and I got myself clean and then he worked on me.
Dude.
I came into the kingdom.
Spot on.
I got myself all nice. And then Jesus came in the room. Like somehow this is what it's like. We have the picture of what our honeymoon was like. Like we think that we came into the kingdom like we got married. That's not what happened. You didn't come in and your wife walks out of the bathroom with her lingerie. Like that's not how we came into the kingdom. We didn't come in looking great and at our best. And we came into the kingdom dirty and broken and unable and beat up, a lot like we came in out of our mother's womb, bloody and bruised a little bit and deformed and uncapable. And then we receive this full acceptance. There's no need for shame. But as soon as shame entered into the picture, I think that that's a lot of where the broken spirit came from.
Yeah. And I think so. If we look at sort of the picture like a greenhouse, I describe in the book, and this really came to be through recognizing these dysfunctional patterns in my own life. But I think we create a greenhouse environment in which the seeds of shame can be nurtured and grow and sustain.
Yeah, talk about those.
Yeah, sure. So like we all experience pain in life. It's not an exception. It's the rule.
Yep.
And we are neurobiologically programmed when we experience pain of any kind to shirk back. Oh gosh, I didn't like how that felt. Yeah. That's normal. But when it comes to emotional pain and wounding and betrayal and grief and all those things, we have an opportunity in that moment of, insulating my heart from future pain to deal with it there. But what happens when we don't deal with it there and we are in the place of an insulated, shame-filled soul? We go further down the rabbit hole into isolation. Now we're separating ourselves from not only life-giving people, but the Lord himself. Yeah, sure, we're keeping ourselves from bad people, maybe. But isolation is dangerous because what happens after a while then is we were using the picture of like the rope that's tied around a limb. That's where the spirit and soul atrophy happens, because we're, through the act of isolation, cutting off the circulation, cutting off the flow to life himself, let alone healing the community through vulnerability. And then what happens, this is where shame has us, because our typical reflex out of that is shame and blame. Yeah. I am fundamentally and fatally flawed. I am broken. I am useless and stupid. I am. Again, you said it, Jay. Shame is an identity. And this is the insidious, devious nature of shame, is that it hooks itself not to action, but to identity.
Right.
Then we turn to blame and say, if you would have loved me, this might not have happened. And then what happens? We feel more pain. We insulate the heart. We go deeper into isolation. We tie the rope tighter. We express more shame and blame. That cycle of pain repeats indefinitely. That is the greenhouse environment in which the broken spirit thrives, and it is exacerbated by the tools of shame and blame. Shame thrives, to your point, in secrecy.
Yeah.
I'd say predominantly in secrecy.
Yeah.
And so this is where I said, in dealing with the broken spirit, the first place to start is come out of hiding, help, surrender. I'm giving in. Here I am, naked and unashamed.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm full of shame, but I'm naked. Here I am, community. Right. On a side note, I find it so fascinating that we went here in this conversation because, Jay, I read the Genesis account and I am full on curious. And I've asked Kurt Thompson this question. I've asked Deloney. I've talked to so many people about this, and it's brought up this sort of curious conversation. Why did Scripture describe Adam and Eve as being naked and unashamed? Why not naked and carefree? Why not naked? What is it about shame that is so primitive to our humanity that it has been around for so long? What's so devious about shame? Adam hid. That's what it is. Shame causes us to hide.
Yeah.
And so dealing with this root of shame is critical for us to move forward in life, to heal the broken spirit, to move down the path of transformation.
Well, if you think about it, if you can divorce shame in your life, if you can break the partnership with shame, essentially you can get your power back, right? Because shame is just this massive ego or this massive controller that is dictating what you can and can't do. So at the moment that you go, okay, maybe I feel shame. Because to think that somehow you're going to arrive at a place where I don't feel any shame anymore right away, maybe not going to happen. And that's what you're saying as well, is when your misery level gets beyond your level of fear, eventually you're going to move, right? So human beings make decisions based upon two things. I'm either more miserable than I am afraid. So I've got to do something. Guy's got a gun pointed at my head. Okay.
That's good, Jay.
You get cancer. All right. I'll start doing all these things I know I'm supposed to do. You had a heart attack. Okay. I'll start eating well. I'll start exercising, or you do it from a place of vision. I don't feel like it, but this is what I want my life to be. And you move. And I think this is the point where guys have to come to is, and the very thing I was talking to the guys about today is, if you allow these secrets, if you allow this shame to live and you treat it like a best friend and you protect it, man, it's just a death sentence, because you'll try this thing and you'll try that thing and you'll try church and you'll try marriage and you'll try this friend group and that friend group, but no one really actually knows the real you.
Yeah, Jay.
They can't really love the real you. You are a dumbed down, watered down version of yourself. And like you're saying, you're nutrient deficient because you're not coming with your whole self. You're coming with a mask on going, this is me. And it's like, no, that's not you. That's a lot of things, but it's not you. So,
and he won't deal with us in the false.
Yeah, it's true. It's real. It's very rare that God forces his will upon you.
Yeah, exactly. He says, come to me as you are.
Yeah.
Why do you think the Lord asked Adam, hey, Adam, where are you? Of course he knew where he was. He was asking Adam, what's the geolocation of your soul? Why are you hiding?
Yeah. Well, I think on another level, if I'm God, I'm going, what level of confession are you willing to make?
Precisely that.
Right? So,
we said that earlier. Confession, right?
Yeah.
Leads to, we give him our truth. We submit our truth to his truth.
Yeah.
And he fills us with his truth. This is sort of in the words of my friend and mentor, Jamie Winship. Confession leads to repentance, which catalyzes transformation.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. It really is the pathway forward.
Amen.
When we talk about pain and we're talking about creating a new life, working through, not around, being able to walk right through. It's James chapter 1.
Come on.
It's being able to
come on, Jay.
Walk all the way through the storm, knowing that, man, God's going to be in the midst of it. It's Psalms 23,
Yes, sir.
We were born for war. We were born for a battle. We were born to make a difference. We're not supposed to, we weren't born for peace. We weren't born to hide ourselves. We were born for tough things. We're salt and light. We are preservative. And I always go back to look at how all of Jesus's disciples died.
Yep.
All of them died, these crazy lives.
Yep.
We're not preserving our life.
Jay,
We are servants who are on a mission to lay ourselves down to be living sacrifices, which means I am coming.
Good word.
I'm coming with my full self, body, soul, and spirit, and walking down this pathway that Christ walked before us. And I just think it's a really powerful thing. We have an opportunity. We don't have an opportunity to pick the pain that we have in our life. We have an opportunity to pick the life that we have in our life and what type of life we're going to live. And so, Chris, it's awesome. I love the book that you wrote. Guys,
thanks, man.
Go and pick up this book. Go and grab it. If you're like, man, I don't yet have a process for dealing with pain. I've got things in my life, and you're going, I really want to transform my mind. I want to transform my emotions. I want to heal my spirit. I have got a broken spirit. This is it, man. Chris, where can they get the book, and where can they stay in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. The book's available everywhere. Books are sold: Target, Walmart, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the places. People can connect with me on Instagram at Win Today Chris. I host a weekly show called Win Today. Yep. It's mental health, emotional health, spiritual growth. You've been a guest, which has been a great joy, and we're going to have you back, which I'm excited about. wintoday.tv is the website, but as I said, the book is available everywhere, physical copy, Kindle, or audiobook on Audible, which I narrated, which was a ton of fun. Way harder than writing the book.
Yeah, it's true. Chris, you're an awesome man. I love having guys on here that live what they walk, and
thank you, my friend.
Just the path that you're blazing for men and women, honestly, is incredible. So
thank you.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
BraveCo men, have an incredible week. Before we go, I really do. I want you to just take a look at the spirit, right? How is your spirit doing? We don't start out going like, man, the circulation's completely cut off. We start out just slowly. It's slowly losing hope, slowly dying, slowly making poor choices, slowly hiding. And just take a look at it. Where's your spirit at today? And do you need to step into health and wholeness? Do you need to step into the light? You need to actually surrender and go, I'm done running. I've been having an affair my wife doesn't know about. I've been looking at porn, my wife or my friends don't know about. I've been drinking too much. I've been checking out. Like that. That's a spirit issue. That's my spirit is broken. That's I'm being circulated. That's I'm living a life of shame. I'm dying. Guys, I'm just here to tell you, like, honestly, there's so much freedom from this. I'm watching guys get well every single day. That is the God's honest truth. I'm not lying. I'm not exaggerating that. I'm literally watching men every day get well. You can start with the book. You can start with our free Foundations of Masculinity Brave course. You can start at your church. You can start, I don't care where you start, but it takes the courage. It takes some vision to go, I'm not this man. I'm not this man who's looking at porn. I'm not this man in the affair. I'm not this man who's been drinking too much. God's called me a son. He's got a great life for me, and I'm going to step into it. Guys, I love you. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Hey, BraveCo men. Hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.